Cause for Hope with Dr. Larry Mitnaul and Pilar Pedraza is brought to you by Kohl's Cares and Ascension Via Christi in partnership with PBS Kansas Public Television.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pilar Pedraza, and with me is my co-host, Dr. Larry Mitnaul, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist with Ascension Via Christi. We're here to continue our ongoing discussion about family mental health and wellness. Each year, suicide claims the lives of a growing number of Sedgwick County teens and adults who do not realize that they're not alone. Help is available. Often they leave behind friends and family who didn't recognize the signs or were unsure how to help. With the help of a grant from Kohl's Cares, Ascension Via Christi, Wichita State University, and other local partners are trying to change the way our community thinks and talks about mental wellness and share ways we can help keep ourselves and our children mentally fit. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the disabling effect depression can have on teens and young adults' ability to perform in school, sports, and all sorts of activities. And I've got to admit, I was one of those perfectionists, so I feel slightly personally attacked by this topic.
I think this will hit home for a lot of people because just as you say, Pilar, for a lot of our young people, they really are struggling with a lot of high performance anxiety and stress around getting things just right and getting them done, kind of perfectly. And so the good news is there are ways, there are things that we can do to help them to thrive before it turns into kind of a crisis moment where they're feeling overwhelmed and not sure what to do.
Yeah, I know personally that my perfectionism has led to anxiety issues throughout my life. I haven't let it stop me, but I know others who have, where that anxiety gets so bad they just don't try anymore.
You're right, and that's often one of the biggest obstacles there, is that it can lead to this frozen moment where rather than people and young people especially being able to show off their gifts, maybe be on the stage or perform in the way that they like to, or take on a new challenge, instead they feel kind of locked in and closed in a cave, and so that's not only bad for them but for the rest of the world too. And so again, the good thing is being able to kind of reframe those experiences and learn from them. There are some opportunities to kind of grow and help kids to thrive.
Yeah. And what are some of those? If you're worried about, especially as a parent, worried about your teen maybe struggling with perfectionism, anxiety, depression, what are some things you can do to help?
Yeah, one of the first things is often to kind of listen and be there, and that sounds maybe kind of obvious to some, but really, as a parent, I know that often I want to offer the advice and solution as soon as I hear about the struggle occurring, but really listen for the themes of these are the goals or high expectations I have for myself, and again, we can validate, and as we're listening to them, okay, there's nothing wrong with having really high expectations and ideals for yourself, but to not allow those things to crowd out the joy and the goodness of what it feels like to be human. And often being human is not being able to perfectly reach that mark that we set for ourselves. So one is being able to listen and validate. The other is maybe helping them kind of reframe their goals or some of the things that they want to do in realistic terms. I think sometimes, again, when we're working with my own kids or the kids that I see in clinic, their hopes for themselves, when we talk about what their goals are, might be to hit every three-point shot. Well, unless you're Stephen Curry, he's 31 years old and has put in many hours of practice and time to kind of perfect that craft. While that is a great and laudatory goal, it might not be where you're able to reach right now, but the goal is to get better and get better each time. So being able to validate that.
Well, and to accept that even Stephen Curry isn't going to make every three-point shot.
Right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And you're not going to be able to do it. I think the other thing too can be helpful is just what you've done is kind of model that one, in the lives of adults. We as parents, as teachers, as educators, as supporters, we've run into that in our own lives, that we've fallen short. And so sometimes I'll give parents the example of, while you're cooking, sometimes you burn the mac and cheese and you say, I'm an awful cook. And so the great follow-up to that can be, actually, normally meals turn out okay. I was distracted or, didn't, took my eye off the ball. It's okay. The meal's going to be fine, or we're ordering pizza tonight, And I think our children seeing us do that, young people doing that, us catching each other and affirming each other in the good that's going on rather than focusing on the imperfection can really be helpful.
All right, and that comes back a lot to the self-talk that even as adults we have.
Yes.
I know
yes.
I have a tendency to, when I screw up, to
yes.
put myself down, but not the best example.
And I like the word that you use, self-talk, because the truth is there's a script going on all the time, that we're constantly, kind of rating our performance. And so often, our biggest critic, our biggest bully is the one kind of living between our two earlobes. And so sometimes it takes a moment of pause to say, hey, Pilar, you're doing a really fantastic job, and practicing that. And again, I think sometimes our kids catch that from us by us maybe making those announcements out loud. No, I'm not an awful driver. Yes, I did hit the mailbox, but I'm going to do better next time.
And you recently spoke with a college athlete who really struggled with some of these issues.
Yes, I had the privilege of talking to the Wichita State University basketball player Dexter Dennis, who gives his really impassionate story about struggling with depression and how that threatened to kind of derail his season, but how he was able to kind of recover and find resilience beyond that. So why don't we take a look at what he had to tell us, because I think it's really going to be helpful for a lot of people.
All right.
I'm excited today to be joined by the amazing Dexter Dennis. And I should say before we get talking, I've been immunized and we're, 6 feet apart. So doing our best to, continue making the community healthy. But this is really, really a pleasure for me, Dexter, that we get a chance to kind of sit down and talk about life in your tremendous story. So I think it might be helpful for people to hear maybe a little bit about your background, your love of the game, and what got you kind of interested in basketball and being at the place where you are now.
Yeah, basketball for me was one of the sports I started playing late. I'd say I started playing around 7th grade. I was a football player first, but basketball is in my family. My mom was a great basketball player, my dad was, so basketball has always been around in my family. It's something I just kind of grew into, actually.
Good. Do they still challenge you when you go home? Is your mom taking you out on the court and saying, let me see what you got now, son?
No, that kind of stopped a long time ago. Now it's just with the words. You know, she's my biggest critic, even after some of my best performances. She's still there to keep me motivated and challenge me. So.
Oh, that's great. So growing up, you said 7th grade, you begin playing, and I'm sure probably people started noticing your talent early on. What does that feel like to suddenly make it to the place where you're getting a Division I scholarship, which is kind of the 1%, maybe less than 1% of people who kind of make that strata of the stage that you're on?
At first, I would say around that time, I wasn't really a good basketball player.
Okay.
I don't think people really started to recognize my talent until after my senior year. I had to do a prep year, which it's the longer route. But after that, I'd say people started to recognize the player I was. Just to be able to play at this level is, it's special because it is the 1% of the 1%. So me personally, I'm just trying to take advantage of every day. Take advantage of every workout, every practice, and just give it all I got because you don't know how long it's going to last.
Sure. And Baker, Louisiana, that's where you're from, yeah. So pretty small town, too. So to be recognized in such a small place, was there some magic sauce? I guess your talent is probably it that made the difference, that shone the spotlight on you?
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's magic sauce or anything. I just I stay connected to my family. All praise to God. I just keep working and I just put my head down and just keep believing. Yeah. And I think me and my family did the same thing, and that's why I'm here today. So I don't know if it's the magic sauce or the.
That's wonderful. So 2019-2020, season, you guys are 9-1. You're getting a lot of accolades too for just the work that you're putting in and how good you're looking and the team chemistry. And then, it seems like out of the blue where, from the outside in, we're looking at a guy who's, pristine physical fitness, mental fitness, as far as we can tell from the outside. But then we hear the announcement that, hey, we're taking that Dexter Dennis has taken an indefinite kind of leave of absence. So can you take us through what got you to that moment, I guess?
Yeah, pretty much around July of that same year, I started to have minor hip problems and back problems. So it first started off as something that was super just small or real just annoying every day of practice. And June, I'd say all the way to October, October is when our hours increase. So when our hours increased, my pain increased a lot because we were doing a lot more activity. So I started to feel really sharp pains throughout my lower back on my right side and then my right hip. And it caused me after the first 2 games, I was having trouble to walk after the games.
Wow.
We perform at a high level, we play high-level players, so it takes a toll on your body. Yeah. So around the 9th or 10th game, we were about to play VCU. After that practice, that Thursday, it kind of just, it put the icing on the cake for me as far as my mind just not being able to keep up with my body anymore, or my body not being able to keep up with my mind. They started to take a toll on one another. Yeah. After just being able to play at a certain level for years, and then just not being able to do the things you used to doing on the court, it kind of took a toll on me mentally.
Sure.
You want to do things, but your body is just not letting you.
Not agreeing.
So I had trouble coming to grips with that.
I see.
Just being the player that I wanted to be for the team, for this university, for this community, it took a lot on me mentally, what I'm saying? But I do think my family, my friends, my teammates, and the coaches who were there for me, who supported me, it was a tough time.
I can only imagine. And how was that, I guess, tapping into that community of support? You've listed your friends and family and teammates and coaches, so were you able to be, pretty open with them to describe kind of, both body and mind weren't kind of working together in the optimal way?
Yeah, it was a new experience for all of us. I think it was a first time that my coaches had to deal with something like this, and it was my first time, of course. So everyone was really supportive. I mean, the support I got from the community and from the fans was it was unbelievable. Yeah. It was something that I probably never forget.
Sure.
So we just adjusted, we adapted, but they supported me the whole way.
Good. And you returned to you made it back to the court and really looking just as stellar as before. What was that process like, getting your body and mind, through that, recovery process back to being 100%, the Dexter Dennis we know?
Man, I went home and I think I sat at home for the first 3 or 4 days. I didn't leave the house. It kind of just, it taught me some things. It just taught me I really love the sport of basketball, and also I needed to take care of my mental health as well. So when I would see my physical therapist at home, I would start doing things on my own as well to take care of my mental health.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So balance is what I was really trying to find, honestly.
Good. What were some of the mental health things that you started then and maybe that have continued with you now that help you to keep that love of the game and that joy that felt like it had been lost?
I'd say meditation has helped me a lot.
Really? Okay.
Just thinking thoughts. I do it a lot before, sometimes for workouts. I'll do it before every game. If I'm at home and I'm just chilling, I got time, I do it then, or I make time. I say balance. I think what kind of drove me off the deep end last year was I didn't have any balance. I was so engaged on my sport 24/7. So when I go home, I would still do the same thing. And what I found out was when I go home, I needed some time away from my sport. You know what I'm saying? To think about other things. It could be just family time, me playing my game or something like that. I was so engaged or locked in, as they say.
Sure. And, it's wise that you say that, actually, because I think often, at the high level, performance or whatever that is, that could be an academic pursuit. It can be easy to get into the groove of eat, sleep, and dream, just that one thing without finding, those other pieces that help support you, help you to feel your best, like making time for family, like, maybe eating well, or or incorporating mindfulness into someone's day.
Yeah, definitely. I had to say I'm not a robot. And for a long time, I thought I was, to some degree. I thought I was pretty much immortal, like I can just take over the world. And this kind of, it humbled me in a very, sensible way. And I'm proud I went through that.
Yeah. I imagine that you've been getting feedback, and maybe that I imagine your story being so public too, and you having the courage to kind of share it has brought other people saying, hey, thanks for sharing that, or that's touched my life. So I guess what have you seen as a result of being kind of courageous and sharing your story like this?
A lot of people reach out to me now. Once I did the article with Taylor Eldridge on Twitter, one of my teammates, and a lot of former athletes or athletes that are here or at other schools will reach out to me now and just ask for, advice, or they'll just share their support, and I'll reach back out, share my support for them as well. But it's very nice to see, people just come out and, finally be able to get the courage to speak out, because we're human at the end of the day.
Yeah. So if there's a parent or teen watching and maybe this, the young person is struggling with having joy in the things that they previously, did or were a part of, do you have some, advice or kind of words of encouragement that you give to them to say, hey, you can triumph through this too, and maybe here's some things to think about?
Everyone's different. I say a lot of the techniques that some of my former teammates, my older teammates that I was here with, I don't know if you guys know Samaje.
Okay, yes.
Samaje Jones, he went through this as well. And a lot of things that he didn't necessarily work for me. So I'd say my advice to them is just find what works for you and take care of yourself. Life is super, super short. You can be here today, gone tomorrow. So just take care of yourself and just do whatever it takes. You know what I'm saying? Just live a happy life and be stress-free.
Good. So Dexter, earlier you were talking about recognizing that you're not a robot, that you're not a machine that just, gets buckets and defends well and does all of these things, but that you're a human. And so I think there are probably a couple of themes there. One, that you are more than the thing that you're exceptionally good at, but also maybe this pressure to be perfect at everything and to have everything in order. So can you talk to that? What helped you to kind of recognize that the 360 version of you is just not this one accolade?
I think growing up for a long time, like I said, that's what I always thought I was. I thought I was just on top of the world. And going through my struggles kind of humbled me, and it made me think that, I'm human just like everybody else. I'm not above or below anybody else. We're all on the same level. And I think my process, it helped me so much. I think it helped the people around me too to realize, that they also had me on this pedestal that I was kind of more than what I was. And it put me in a place, made me think about others around me. It started making me be more, what can I say? I started caring more for people around me too as well, you know what I'm saying? So being a robot, what I always thought I was, it just, we're not at the end of the day. We have feelings as well. We feel things, we can feel things too. So in this day and age, we did have this thing on social media where, people attack you and you're not supposed to say anything, you don't feel anything, we're just supposed to perform every day, And we all want to be like that, but that's just not how it is.
Right. I'm glad that you made that point too, because I think in the social media era, a lot of young people can feel kind of vulnerable to that. So, maybe their life is and their happiness is almost kind of controlled by the number of likes or how negative or positive people are. And it sounds like you found some space to kind of distance yourself from that, so that you can still be you and not be just, again, Dexter the basketball star.
The social media thing is kind of funny to me. Some of these people couldn't survive in our shoes for probably a few hours, maybe. You know what I'm saying? So when we see comments like that, or they're attacking us personally or athletically, it doesn't matter. We laugh about it, to be honest. Well, I laugh about it. I think it's a joke, honestly.
That's a good way to handle it.
Yeah.
And then what about the kind of perfectionistic tendencies that I think high performers can have? How do you find a little bit of extra grace or forgiveness when, for yourself or for other people in your life, when you're like, hey, it might not ever get to, 100% of everything that I absolutely want, but I can feel good at least with what I've contributed and the work that I've put in?
In this sport, being a perfectionist is very, very common. Everybody wants to play a perfect game. You know what I'm saying? And it never happens, but shooting for it sometimes is like a good thing and it's a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? Because when you mess up, it can mess up your mind, really. Just thinking, all right, now the game is over. I messed up once, now everything's done. But in reality, it's just one mistake. Sure. Just move on into the next play. And I I think that's something I learned just playing college basketball. My freshman year, I'd probably say I was an extreme perfectionist.
Okay.
I wanted everything to just go the right way. I'd say my last year too, not this past year, but my sophomore year, I'd say I just wanted everything to go the right way. And when it didn't, it was almost like the end of the world for me. So that's something I also had to learn as well.
All right, good. I really like that. I'm actually going to start using that in the clinic too. It's just one mistake, right? It's just one mistake in the realm of kind of life and trying to live it to the fullest. So
yeah, in this sport, you make mistakes often sometimes, but also in this sport you can. After that mistake, you can make a great play. You know what I'm saying? And that people will forget all about that mistake. You probably will forget about it yourself. So I think if you're just dwelling on that same mistake, then you might not make the next play.
Great. Well, Dexter, again, I appreciate your words of wisdom because I think this is going to help a lot of people to overcome and hopefully find the hope that they need to take that next step and to keep battling another day. So thank you so much, Dexter.
Thank y'all.
And that was a really fascinating discussion. One of the big takeaways I got out of that is the importance of asking for help. He reached out.
Yes, it is. And, that takes so much humility, especially because I think often in our perfectionistic stance, we take all of the onus on ourselves to fix the problem or to make it happen. And so it takes some humility, but often that is wisdom, really. That's wise to say, this is beyond me or something that I'm really having trouble struggling with. And so can I lean on your shoulder, or can I talk to you to get some advice, to get some counsel, to get some recommendations on what should I do next to feel more like myself?
Yeah, just not giving up and continuing to ask for help. And Dexter said one of the things that really kind of helped him make that reach out was examples that he had of professionals who were very open. And, that's part of why I'm very open about my issues, and others that we have talked with on the show who have shared their own experiences and what a difference that makes.
You're right, Pilar. And so thank you for doing that because, earlier when we were talking about modeling, I think that's, another range of modeling that ends up being, helpful not only for the people that know you, but for the rest of the world as well. So I think when people see, hey, look at this anchor on television, and I would assume that her life is perfect. And yes, there are many wonderful kind of joys, and there might be things too that are stumbling blocks or difficulties too. And so often, the things that we struggle with inside, internally, no one can see them from the outside. And so we really don't know unless other people are sharing their story. So I'm always, amazed, really amazed by these young athletes and these professionals and people who have the spotlight to share that this isn't, a vulnerability. You're not less than. In fact, you actually make other people stronger by sharing your story of resilience and what the struggle was like, because then they get to hear and see, I can be that person too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know that has been a big help for me as well as I move forward in my career, knowing that anchors and other journalists that I admire, as I read their life stories, a lot of them end up writing books.
Yes.
It's like, okay, it wasn't easy. It looks like it, but it's not.
Right. And, I think there's a reason that we're all drawn to stories of triumph through adversity. I mean, I can guarantee that, every year we'll get a superhero movie that focuses on not just having great super strengths, with which often, our young people have. I mean, they're incredibly smart or, incredibly, talented as athletes, or, have interests that are really strong that they're learning to develop and learning to kind of craft together. And yet, even with, those things, that there can be some struggles that come along the way. So that's part of the human story.
Okay, I want to bring up one other thing that I ran into for folks who know me before I kind of came on air in the Wichita market. I spent several years as a high school teacher. And my experience in the classroom is that sometimes that perfectionism doesn't show as the high achiever, but as a person who doesn't even try. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And as a parent, that's something to be aware of.
It is. You're absolutely right. I'm glad that you highlighted that because, I think I've been speaking more about, those who are going, but sometimes that feeling of being unable to meet unrealistic expectations. And that's often what we're talking about. It's not that, you can't shoot 3-pointers. It's, that I'm going to hit 99.9% all of the time. Okay. Those unrealistic expectations can be so heavy that they cause people to, close down and to freeze up rather than to take on a new challenge or to excel or try in the areas where they really could have some success. So you're right. That's really important to recognize that, parents or teachers or educators too, if you're seeing your young people, with this feeling that or exhibiting, a lack of interest, a lack of motivation to even give something a try, and you know that they have the gifts or aptitude to do it. One of the things that might be crowding that out is this perfectionism, and so helping them to reframe and say, yes, those are really great goals, but how likely is it that you're going to hit 99.9% of all free throws? That'd be extremely hard. All right, so what are the goals that we can shoot for, and then helping to shrink those into manageable bite-sized pieces so that, as you tackle the bite-sized pieces, then you're growing and gaining more confidence in what you're able to do.
Wow. Some very useful tips there for parents, teachers, teens themselves, perhaps, yes, to, if they're not getting help anywhere else, to kind of try and implement as well, and that self-talk we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
All right. Well, it looks like we're running out of time again, as we always seem to do. I have enjoyed our discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we hope that you will join us for next month's show as we continue to talk about what we can do to help maintain our own and support others' mental health and wellness. Also, if you've not yet taken advantage of the free Suspenders for Hope suicide awareness and prevention training program, we hope you'll do so. Simply go to the website on your screen for more information. Until next time, I'm Pilar Pedraza. Stay well.